Hey, good evening. Stormtracker 16 meteorologist John Hickey joining you in the Weather Center. Thanks for joining along on this live deal that we've got going on both through our app as well as on YouTube and some other streaming platforms as well. We got the 10 o'clock news coming up, so we don't have a lot of time to chat with you here, but just wanted to bring you the latest on this potential flash flooding. I know a lot of you are, and rightfully so, a little sensitive to additional rain coming in, some cleanup efforts still going on in the hard-hit areas through the back mountain and obviously up through the Abingtons, Clark Summit area, Dalton too, and Scranton as well. There were some neighborhoods incredibly hard hit by some of that rain over the weekend. So with more rain coming in here for late tonight, early tomorrow, a lot of eyes on this. Couple of notes. One, we don't have as much, let's call it atmospheric juice to work with this go around, which means that if we do see some flash flooding, it will not be as significant as what we saw over the weekend, which is good news. The other part of the story, and I think this is going to be a relief for a lot of us, we have a beautiful stretch of weather that comes in behind this. So once we get through tomorrow morning, tomorrow being your Wednesday morning, starting that afternoon and really running through not only the end of your work week, but the weekend, just a terrific stretch of weather coming up. We're looking at a lot of sunshine, lower humidity, great chance to dry out for an extended period of time. So some great news there. Want to show you some maps. We'll start you off with what we're seeing on the radar at this hour. And what we're noticing is that line that was moving through central Pennsylvania, as we expected, is kind of lifted off to the north and to the east up through the southern tier of New York State, up into the Finger Lakes, and is really no bother to us. But what we are seeing is look down through Maryland. We've seen this cluster of storms that is developed in this region north of D.C. So essentially what's going on here is we have some incredibly humid air and some atmospheric moisture to work with, some juice, let's call it, and that's going to start to stream northeastward here tonight. And to that end, this is going to be the area that may end up dealing with some localized flash flood issues. So a closer inspection of what we're seeing at the radar as of 9:40 on your Tuesday evening. You can see that area of storminess that lifted through the Wellsboro area, through the Gaslight District, probably just north of Mansfield. It has gone up through Elmira, Corning, and then up into the Finger Lakes, Watkins Glen, Ithaca, and then northeastward from there. So that's no longer a threat for us, but what is an area of concern is what we're seeing developing down to our south and to our west. A flood watch is in effect for all of the highlighted counties that you see here, which is a good chunk of the area. The only areas not included would be Union, Snyder, Clinton counties. So in the highlighted area is where we are most likely to find some batches of some heavier rainfall. But what I'd tell you is that from what we're seeing in some of the latest information coming in is that it's really going to be confined up through northeastern Pennsylvania. It looks like central Pennsylvania, you may see some showers, but the more significant risk for any flash flooding would be through the northeast. This is probably one of the primary reasons why I've hopped on here tonight. We get these, they're called, kind of short fuse discussions that come in from various branches of the National Weather Service. This one, I know there's just a bunch of squiggly lines. It probably doesn't mean a lot to you, but I'll jump through this and get to some maps that are maybe a little bit more understandable. But just know that I saw this get issued and I went, better do one of these live events just to give you a heads up. So that squiggled area, what's being outlined, we've got this cold front back to the west. And then this squiggled area is the area where flash flooding would be most likely. Doesn't mean everyone sees it, but that squiggled area where we were most likely to see any risk for some flash flooding. You can see it does include some of the areas up through the back mountain, up through Lackawanna County, through Scranton, Clark Summit, Dalton, Newton, Ransom area, as well as the Poconos too. But of course the Poconos maybe not finding as much rain as some other areas did over the course of the weekend. Now this just getting released too, an increased risk for some flash flooding, that level 2 out of 4 area for the Poconos just getting introduced here tonight. Again, I think this may end up being maybe a little bit further northwest to kind of encompass some of the areas that were hardest hit over the weekend for some flash flooding. So here's the latest round of future clouds and radar to share with you. We are quiet for a couple of more hours yet, but it looks like once we get beyond midnight, until like 2 o'clock in the morning or so, that cluster of storms that's currently in the vicinity of D.C. is going to start to encroach up into our neck of the woods, so that by 3, 4 o'clock in the morning, we are looking at some pretty good downpours coming through not only the Poconos, but it looks like some of our valley cities as well. This may very well scrape portions of the back mountain too. It's just going to depend on the track and trajectory of the storms coming down from the southwest. Now, we advance this a couple more hours, starting to get into morning drive time. Looks like the heaviest rain is out, just some renegade showers left over. So it looks like as we're off to work and school in the morning, the heaviest rain is done. So that's good news. The bad news, of course, is that the damage could already be done. There could be some, renewed flash flooding concerns just as we're trying to get off to work and school. So latest run from this particular model shows where we have, through the Poconos, the coal region could be looking at that stripe of 1 to 2 inches of rain. But again, don't sleep on what's going on in our valley cities too. Could very well see another stripe of some heavier rain up through areas that were already pretty hard hit. So we're going to have to be a little extra vigilant on that front. So tonight, that rain becomes likely, temperatures dropping into the low 60s. And then once this sweeps through, we're looking at some much lower humidity moving in here, starting really late tomorrow night, but especially on Thursday. Thursday looks like we really get into some much less humid air. So again, in case you're just joining us, some risk for flash flooding, we've been talking about it. We're seeing some areas that could be harder hit, maybe through the Poconos, as well as some of our valley cities with an inch or two of rain, and that may fall in just an hour or two time, and that's what would lead to that chance for flash flooding. Again, if you're just jumping into this, we don't expect this to be like what we saw on Saturday. Again, up through the Notch, if you're familiar with that, up in the Clark Summit area. We don't expect it to be like that. What we do see, though, is that potential, if you get that quick inch and a half, 2 inches of rain in an hour or two, there will be some renewed flooding, not to the extent that we saw over the weekend, but certainly enough that you'd have to avoid the area for some period of time. And let's not forget, too, just being hit, certainly, some roadways are still buckled up and obviously still in need of some repairs. We're also looking at, some storm drains and things that could still be plugged up from some of the debris over the weekend. So if you want to really do yourself some favors, try to, you're watching this, you get it on your phone, you get it on your tablet, whatever, just run outside real quick. If you've got a storm drain outside, try to clear that up and give that rain somewhere to go to help reduce the risk of any renewed flash flooding concerns for where you are. But again, this is mainly going to be a valley cities out to the Poconos concern for us tonight. If you're watching this from, let's say, the Williamsport area or the Bloomsburg area, I don't foresee any kind of issues out your way. This looks like more of a further east issue. Unfortunately, areas that saw some heavy rain over the weekend could see some heavy rain here overnight while we're sleeping. So that would renew that potential for some flash flooding concerns. Obviously, this is a developing deal that we're continuing to watch. We invite you to watch Newswatch 16 at 10 on WNEP2, as well as on 11 on WNEP. And as the latest comes in, we'll try to, again, kind of hone in on where we expect the heaviest rain to fall. So thanks a lot for tuning us here for this live chat. We hope to see you on the tube. Be well, take care, stay safe.